Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Melissa Made Show. So I have a special guest today. I had the honor of being on his podcast, and we just clicked. We are very much in alignment, but I'm always hoping that there's a little bit of exchange in some of the things that we believe in, because obviously there's always more than one way. But his name is Josh Dech. And I love that last name. I don't know why, but I love your last name, Josh. I think that's cool.
Oh, thank you.
With an ex-paramedic, and he's a holistic nutritionist, gut specialist, and medical lecturer who helps his clients reverse gut disease like Crohn's and colitis. So that's exciting to me in and of itself, because how many people that I help and that I get questions from in this area of life is obviously growing, and we're going to talk about that. But not only that, but it's tricky. It's a really tricky thing to help people through. And I do think the advice that's out there tends to be from one end of the spectrum to the next. And so when you've got two nutritionists who really want to do it as holistically as possible, you're going to get some good information. But he had incredible success with these misunderstood diseases that got him connected with some of the world's leading doctors and health professionals. And it earned him a faculty role at the Functional Medicine School, Priority Health Academy, as a medical lecturer, teaching doctors a holistic and natural approach to gut disease. So, number one, y'all are welcome. These are the kind of people that you want to align with and learn from. And of course, as always, at the end, we'll teach you how to connect with him. But Josh, why don't you kind of share with the audience, first and foremost, thanks for being on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You bet. Share with the audience, what took you from being a paramedic to being where you are today. Was there anything in particular that made you go in this direction, or did it just happen by chance?
There's two ways to spin that story. So the first one, I can tell you exactly how it really did happen. The other, I can make it sound like I had this big breakthrough, but it wasn't. It was total accident and a fluke. So I was a paramedic. I graduated from Ontario. I worked out in Newfoundland. I've been across the country a bit out here in Canada. But when I came out to Alberta, my license wouldn't transfer. It was just, it was this bullshit jurisprudence. It wasn't a medical exam. It was questions like, if there's a complaint against you for professional misconduct, how many members of what board will sit on the hearing committee? I'm like, that's not my job. And so I failed this test. I tell you, I say it was complete divine intervention. God's like, you're no longer going to be a paramedic. It was open book. I had myself, my dad, he's a computer programmer, and a friend of mine doing the same test, trying to speed find, open book, trying to find the answers for these questions. I failed 7 times, these jurisprudence tests. So I'm like, okay, screw that. I'm going to go into personal training because that's what I know and another passion of mine. And so I did that for a little while. And I discovered very quickly there's a lot of issues in medicine. One, is a paramedic, I picked up the same people for the same issues over and over and over again. And heart disease, chest pain, nausea, generally unwell, they would call it. And you pick them up week over week over week until they stopped calling because they were dead. And so when I started as a personal trainer, this really opened my eyes. It was a woman I was seeing. We became quite good friends. She was my weed dealer for a little while, And so she she was having issues with weight gain. Had congestive heart failure, had some gut stuff, hypertensive. She had 17 pills and insulin for breakfast, 9 pills and insulin before bed. And she had CPAP machine to sleep, just a bunch of issues, disability list at work. So when the fire would come on the 27th floor, she couldn't go down. She had to wait for everybody to come and get her, like just absolutely falling apart. And she was 57 when she came to see me. And when she was 59, she had lost a bunch of weight. She was off all medications but two. And I said, Lynn, do you trust me? She says, yes. I said, okay, sign this. And she just signed it. I said, great. I will see you in 3 months. We're going to your first powerlifting competition. And by age 59, she broke her first world record in the raw division.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh my gosh,
Amazing.
what a great story.
Yeah. And she kept breaking records, and most of them were her own all the way to 61, 62 years old. And that just went to show that pills and
Mm.
medications just aren't fixing anything. It was lifestyle, it was diet, it was nutrition. And I started diving deeper and deeper. And I realized that 14 out of 15 of the leading causes of death in North America are all directed to, or they're all chronic inflammatory conditions directly connected to gut disease. That's 14 of 15 leading causes of death. And I'm like, there's got to be something more to it. And
Mhm.
so I got approached for things like weight loss resistance, and I started seeing more gut. And then I deal with PCOS or endometriosis, and it was more gut and gut and gut disease. And I started fixing IBS. And then the more severe the conditions, the more people came to see me for things like inflammatory bowel disease. And once I got into that, I'm like, this is the pits. These people have 30, 40 bowel movements a day with blood and mucus and chronic pain and chronic fatigue. They need help. And that's where I ended up where I am today.
Gosh. Okay, that was good.
Thank you.
That's a great reason. And before we really get specifically into the gut, one thing that really resonated with me was when you said, sign this, and you had her sign that piece of paper, because with all of my clients right now, I am really trying to help them create that accountability to stick to, some of the harder decisions they have to do on a consistent basis to reach their goals. Eating better, working on their hydration, their sleep, their stress, all that stuff that we work on people with. But there always comes in your mind that, oh, I screwed up. I'll start Monday, or I'll start the next day. And time just keeps going by. And then before you know it, 3 months is up, and I'm telling them, I need you to set a date for something. And I've given them all sorts of examples. Like, I don't care if you have the guts to get yourself in, a broad top and a pair of shorts and take a picture and put it on your social media and say, 3 months from now, I'm going to post myself again and I'm going to look completely different. Or if you sign yourself up for a good friends of mine, I have quite a few friends right now doing fitness competitions. There's no greater accountability than that date to be on stage. Just powerlifting, whatever it is, to put your client, to give them a date to reach. Is so important in helping them get through the everyday, minutia and the monotony of the things that we have to do to be healthy to get to that point. So I'm really impressed by that.
Oh, I love that. And it's so funny because a lot of those are so benign almost to us, right? If we're comfortable in our bodies, taking a photo, it's not a big deal. Yeah, fine, 3 months. We may not put much stock in it. Unfortunately for Lynn, hers came with a caveat. I'm like, oh, by the way, you've signed the form now. You owe me $200 for registration fee. It's going to be $100 for a singlet. And she's like, oh shit, but she did it. And it's
That's
really
so,
cool to see. Oh
yeah.
yeah. But not only is it an amazing story, but it trickled down. There's a permeation effect from her to the rest of her family. She's
Yeah.
got, I think it was like 5 kids or something. I haven't seen her in years now, but she had kids who were overweight or dealing with sickness and illness, dealing with spine issues, scoliosis, the works, who I became best friends with. Much of the family understood things on a very different level. Their families started going into health and in wellness. And at the time, one of her daughters had a 2-year-old who then she was now applying these same practices to improve. Her 2-year-old was actually born with gut issues and had hemorrhoids and all kinds. So that kid gave me pink eye several times because she'd scratch her butt and touch my face. But this whole process of the permeation and trickle down to her family, her husband, her kids, her grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
because she took that step forward and applied a lot of these very basic health principles that just weren't in the family before her.
That's just incredible. Okay, podcast done. That was motivate me. But I would like to, if you could share with the audience, because I think sometimes I shouldn't say I think, I know many times we really have to sometimes really dive deep or get into some testing for people to even understand whether they have not just gut issues, but something like Crohn's or colitis or IBD or IBS or SIBO or any of these. Can you share with the audience a little bit, you can never just be too obvious. And I guess because we do this work, it kind of seems that way to us, but what causes these kind of things? What are we doing? Because the rise is crazy. What are we doing today that are causing these kind of autoimmune disorders to pop up?
Well, I think I'd actually like to address two things here. The first one, you would ask about testing. And I'd like to talk about that as well as the causes for sure. It's very, very important. I think it's important to split the difference between testing. Classic example, I talked to somebody the other day. I always go to root cause, right? What is the root? Why? We have this minimum 5 layers deep on everybody. Why do I have this? What caused it? We keep going deeper and deeper. And so I asked somebody, I said, what is your doctor doing to find the root cause of your inflammatory bowel? She has ulcerative colitis. She says, well, they've done CT scans, they've done colonoscopies, they've done MRIs, they've done bloods, they've done this and that. All of these Western medical tests, they're not tests. They're not root cause tests. They are diagnostic in such a way where it gives the doctors just enough information to be able to describe your symptoms. Once they have those symptoms, they then put it in a box with a name. That's your diagnosis. That diagnosis is then paired with a drug. And so we talk about root causes and getting to the roots and testing. I don't want to know what is going on. A diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, is nothing more than a word that describes the current state of affairs. That's all it is. So I don't give a shit what's going on. I want to know why it's going on. The what only points us to the why. But in Western medicine, the what points us to a drug, and the drug masks the symptoms. And the difference is when we take medications, the symptoms go away. But a symptom is your body screaming. It's crying out for help. And that's the thing. It's saying, help me, help me. But then you take a medication and you put tape over its mouth and we go, look, I stopped it from screaming. Therefore, I fixed the problem. And it doesn't work that way.
Wow,
Right. So we
great
have to
analogy.
test. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, we have to go back to the root and figure out the reason. What is the why? And so the testing for these things, when we're dealing with things like gut issues or labs, we always have to go deeper. I always recommend seek a functional practitioner. Classic example for gut, since we're on the topic, would be like a GI map, right? Basic, just let's see some bacterial profiles. Now, they're not comprehensive. You have about 18 million different types of bacteria in your gut. There's about 100 trillion of them total. They make up 2 to 3% of your entire body weight, and they outnumber your own cells 10 to 1. So it's vast. We can test on a GI map 50, maybe 100. It's a grain of sand on a beach, but your doctor will check 5. Right? They'll check for salmonella, they'll check varicella, they'll check for E. coli, MRSA, C. diff, like really basic stuff. And so you have no bacterial issues. But imbalances, too much good is as much of a problem as too much bad. Not enough good or bad out of ratio is a problem. I describe it like this. You can, everything's about harmony in the gut. And so when we're testing, it's about balance. It's not a power struggle, it's balance. And so think of it this way. We need good and we need bad, right? Whether we like it or not, even the crack dealer at the gas station contributes to the economy, right? In some way, shape, or form, they contribute, right? And so we look at it this way, we understand that the good and bad have a role. It's not always bad. We need police to police the drug dealers. That way we can have that give and take, that harmony. But if every grocery store, every Tim Hortons, every food chain was just somebody selling crack, you're going to die of nutrient deficiencies and the whole world implodes, right? Obviously, that's a problem. But on the other hand, we have this balance between good and bad. We need these, quote, bad bacteria. All of us are going to have Citrobacter or Klebsiella or Provotella, Morganella, some of these bacteria that we dive into that are maybe not optimal to have, but they play a role in small amounts. And so it's all balanced. We need to test. Another classic example, excuse me, another classic example of testing is thyroid, right? If somebody goes to the doctor, they go, we have low thyroid. Here's a Synthroid pill. Well, that's horseshit. Your thyroid, there's a 99% chance, I'm pulling that number out of my ass, but there's a very high chance you're not underproducing thyroid. What it likely is your body maybe not converting thyroid from inactive to active, which goes back to your liver and your gut and all sorts. And so instead of just testing, saying it's low, here's a drug, go back to why. What is the root? And again, they'll just test what, T3, maybe T4. And that's it. We're not checking reverse. We're not checking free. We're not checking these things. So we need a more comprehensive analysis. And so that's sort of my spiel on testing, why it's so important to go private, go holistic, go functional.
Right.
And the second question was causes. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
this is
just,
just,
you know, Josh, I just want you to know my neck already hurts. I'm just sitting here going.
it's just nodding. Give yourself whiplash.
You're so spot on. I appreciate that. So spot on.
I do my best to make sense, so I'm glad it's tracking. And so when we're dealing with causes, right, Western medicine, all they do is put tape over the mouth, they stop the body from screaming, but they don't fix it. So what is the root? What is causing gut issues? And again, they're severe, right? We look at gut issues. Your gut is directly connected, like I said, directly connected to 14 out of 15 of the leading causes of death in the United States. That's going to be heart disease, strokes, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all that stuff, right? It's terrible. Your gut has a direct role. Well, if the gut plays a role in these diseases, we'd like to see a low prevalence of gut issues. Now, gut issues, it's a spectrum. So even something as benign as bloat, it's a gateway drug, right? It is a precursor to other diseases. 72% of all Americans, that's what, 250 million out of 350 or whatever, 72% complain of gut issues at least once a week, minimum. And so we're talking bloat, gas, acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation, pain, something. Yeah. So 72% of people are at high risk for one or at least one of these 15 leading causes of death. The 15th cause is self-harm, injury, or suicide. So 14 of these quote natural causes are all gut related. And so 72% of us are on that slippery slope. Furthermore, just to add some clout to that, dealing with inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's colitis, right? Blood, mucus, pain in the bowel movements compared to childbirth from women who have given birth. Like I believe them, right? We have about according to the CDC, there's about 6.5 million cases worldwide currently being treated by a doctor or being medicated for inflammatory bowel disease. The United States it's less than 5% of the global population. They have 50% of those diseases. Gut disease is a freaking epidemic. And so we have to look, we go, well, they're normal. Everybody deals with it. Well, normal doesn't mean optimal. Normal is a problem, right? And so we look at the cause of these issues, even IBD, we go, well, it's autoimmune. We don't know. There's no known cause. It's idiopathic, they say, right? There's no known cause for this. Well, if 5% of the world has 50% of the diseases, you sure as shit bet there's a cause. You just don't know how to recognize, right? Huge red flag. If I were dating you, we are going to couples counseling week 1. Like this is a problem. So we have to look, what is the cause? Well, the United States, number one, our food. It's horrible. Not only do many of us make bad food choices, meanwhile, the doctors will tell you food has nothing to do with it. Eat whatever you want. And your doctor's 50 pounds overweight. That's bullshit. And so we have to understand there's a problem. We look at our food choices. Number one, processed packaged foods. And I'm speaking to the choir. I can see you're nodding, right? I can see you. You know this. Your audience knows this. But benign things, right? Anything processed, anything fried, if it doesn't grow on a tree in the ground, if it doesn't fly in the air, swim in the sea, or walk on 4 legs, God forbid 6 or 8 if you're into that, you should be eating that, right? Everything else should not be eaten. Yeah. If it comes out of a bag, that's a problem. But that's just processed foods. Those are fried foods. Those are refined foods. On the other hand, we have to look at what's being put in our food. Look at pesticides, right? There are, I forget the exact number, an immense amount of toxic pesticides, roughly 50% more highly toxic, carcinogenic, inflammatory pesticides used in the US than there are used in things like the EU or the UK. So we have way more things that slip through the FDA. It's a big corrupt circle jerk of an organization where it's all connected between the Food Administration or the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, between big pharma, between the medical system. It's all circulates itself. You get somebody who leaves the FDA and goes and works on the board of a pharmaceutical company who goes from there and works on another board of like Monsanto. Like it's horrible. And so all these foods make us sick. We know pesticides destroy metabolic pathways in plants and weeds and other pathogens that kill our food. They do the same in our gut. Glyphosate is directly known to cause cancer. We see these pesticides causing DNA damage and gene mutations and all kinds. And then we eat them and wonder why we're sick. And then we call it idiopathic autoimmune, no known cause. Riddle me that.
Right. Wow, 100%. So much to unpack there. So what is your, not trying to veer left a little bit, but kind of
Veer any way you want. Be a drunk driver. I'm cool with it.
I'm a really good driver, by the way. With
Even drunk.
I thinking about food, I'm always curious, and like I said, I think you and I align really well, but either it's going to help just kind of drill it into the listeners, or maybe you describe things very well. Get to the point, Melissa. How do you feel about, gosh, there's so many things for me to ask you. The first one, diet. We have, again, everything, because of the information overload out there, everything, the way that we can eat is justified somehow, some way. So whether it is going carnivore, whether it is going keto, whether it is going, plant-based, pescatarian, Mediterranean, yeah. Do you, when you work with your clients, what's the diet like? Like, does it depend on the person, or generally speaking, do you just say like, okay, we just really need to get back to living, like a normal person, even back into the 70s as opposed today, or our ancestors, however you like to put it. How is diet fit into you helping your clients overcome these gut issues?
So I've spoken to so many different people about this, and truthfully, I'm a holistic nutritionist and I still have no bloody idea. Right? Like, I can't expect your average consumer to have a freaking clue what to do about this stuff. So Dr. Anthony Chafee, very well known MD and carnivore, right? I actually had him on the podcast. We're putting his episode out here in the next week or two, and he's nothing but red meat in water for the last 8 years.
So crazy.
Yeah. And he looks great. Like, he's stacked. My wife calls him hot meat guy. So like, he looks incredible. He's got this great physique. He doesn't sunburn. He says he did something like 26 sets of squats till failure. And he's like, I'm not sore. I got up the next day and played rugby. And he's like, it's all meat. Then you get doctors like Joel Fuhrman, who's like a 7 times New York Times best-selling author. And he told me, he says, plant-based diet, meat once in a while. Meat doesn't digest, blah, blah, blah. So like, you can find a study to back up anything. And so I tell my clients, I've created over 21 different types of diets: high FODMAP, low FODMAP, high meat, low meat, plant heavy, no plants whatsoever. I've gone carnivore, I've gone keto with my clients based on their needs, based on their bacterial profiles. And so what I recommend, if you have severe gut issues, definitely follow a basic low FODMAP and try carnivore. See how it feels. Stick to meats like fish and turkey and chicken rather than red meat, but use fats, use butters. That can typically be a lot easier on a gut, because you don't know, unless you're working with someone like myself or somebody else to diagnose. I can't use the word diagnose legally, it's owned by pharma. To understand deeper, I should say, your gut issues, your bacterial profiles. If you have overgrowth, you're going to react like garbage to sugars, to carbs, to fibers, starches, any of that stuff. You're going to bloat if you have SIBO or whatever else. So in general, I would say simple proteins like fish, turkey, chicken are more easily tolerated, but it has to be intuitive. You have to figure it out. In fact, I did an interview with Lisa Bilyeu, Women of Impact Theory.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And she's a hard ass on herself. And she has just everything. It's like, whatever I have to do, we're going to figure it out. And so she actually talks about this process where she took inventory. She tracked everything. She's okay, today I'm going to open up to a new food. I'm going to try one single blueberry, see how it goes. And then I'm going to track it within an hour, half hour. How do I sleep that night? Very microscopic changes. Wow. And she had severe gut issues, right? But what she was doing was taking inventory, adding micro bits of a thing at a time. She wasn't afraid of the hard work, wasn't afraid of discipline. And so many of us associate food or alcohol or junk food with a good time, right? I'm going to be social. I'm going on vacation. I've had clients tell me straight up, like, I'm going on vacation. I know my gut's bad, but I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to have a drink. I'm like, why? Yeah. Why would you voluntarily do that to yourself? Like, you're in bad shape. You've got a broken leg. You're like, yeah, but I really want to bounce on the trampoline. Like, give it time to heal, right? And so we have these associations with food or alcohol or sugar or things that harm us with a good time. That's a cultural issue. Yep. And so that's for us to break. Now, you can take inventory like Lisa did. When I eat this, how do I feel? Ask yourself, am I gassy? Am I bloated? Am I in a good mood? Am I in a bad mood? Do I have high energy? Am I lethargic, like low energy? Do I want to take a nap? Am I feeling social? Am I feeling introverted? These things are all responses from your food. And so ultimately what I say is, when in doubt, do an elimination diet, cut it back to basics, go with proteins, very simply, fish, chicken, turkey, red meat if you can handle, ground meats are typically a bit easier, and see how that feels. And then start adding in one thing at a time. You want to try some spinach? Shit, go ahead, have some spinach, have a fruit. I don't subscribe to one type of diet. I subscribe to intuitive eating based on how your body is responding, but you have to take inventory, and nobody's going to do that for you. It's a lot of discipline and it's a lot of work, and you have to be ready and willing to do it.
Yeah. Great answer. I love that so much.
Should have been a politician, play the middle.
Yeah. Well, maybe Josh for president.
One day.
I appreciate that answer. And I agree with you. There's just so many, you see some amazing specimens out there. And then when you hear of the discipline and the type of diet they have, you're like, wow, really? And it does, even as somebody like myself or you, who, truly knows the importance of, phytonutrients and all that, you're still like, gosh, should I try carnivore?
I do. Like I'm an animal-based diet. I eat steak, like fatty steaks 3 times a day, covered in butter. Sometimes I'll use honey, and mostly fruit. Yeah, I'll make soup. Like I made a chicken soup with rice and carrots and celery and all that. And it's delicious, but I'm probably 80% animal-based, and I've never felt better.
Yeah.
But I was borderline SIBO, dealt with some H. pylori. I've got candida I'm still working on. Like I had a big, nasty candida overgrowth. I've got acne, like I'm still getting rid of, but that's my gut. And so this diet responds well to my gut. When I get rid of it, it'll probably change, but that's the intuitiveness. That's the being aware and disassociating food with fun or food with culture, and looking at food as fuel, which I know you've told your clients and you've told your audience hundreds of times, but it's boring information. It's not clickbait. Right.
Right. No, 100% it's not. And I just before I decided to test, I explained the whole Mexico thing and really working to improve the quality of this. So I did a little solo podcast before jumping on here with you. And I talked about just that of, you can't just look at your favorite influencer and because that diet works well for them, expect it to work well for you. And it's got to be very individual, and you have to be patient with it. You have to understand what you're creating is a sustainable diet, not something that's going to work short term, which again is not what people want to hear.
We got to be careful where you get your information from. So many of us are looking at these 20-year-old influencers who go, it's all about balance, hashtag live, laugh, love. And they're going out just fucking binge drinking on the weekends and eating cake twice a day. I'm like, you're 20. You could get into a car accident, get out, drink a 6-pack and go to the gym. You'd be fine. Like I have a beer and I feel like garbage for a day and a half. So I'm 31. I'm like, it's such a despondent view. So we got to be careful who we're validating our information from.
That's true. And actually in that podcast, I mentioned too, that you will have the brick shit house that you're just like, and they will say, enjoying a cocktail or having dessert, and they make it sound like they do this a lot, but they really don't. I mean, to have that physique is very disciplined, and so there is a lot of moderation that comes with that. And even though you may see that it happens a lot, and so it gives you permission to okay, well, if this brick shit house can look like that, then I can have my drinks on the weekend and I can have my dessert a few times a week. Maybe not. You've got to take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt. And Josh, I'm going to jump because this was a flash in the pan in the news, but it's something that really resonated with me. And I would love your opinion if you paid attention to it.
I never do, but I'm sure I can give a feedback if you give me the details.
Okay. It was probably, gosh, I don't know, 6 weeks ago is my guess, came out about how some influencers, dietitians, and doctors were paid by, the big soda companies to put on their social media, that aspartame and the diet sodas aren't that bad for you. And I kept seeing that, and I kept kind of scratching my head going, ooh, okay, moderation, I understand right now. I feel like the nutritional world we are very divided. There's some of us that are like, we really need to, because of the health of our gut and the direction that we're going, we really need to make significant changes and really pull away from the standard American diet. And then you've got the others that are like, no. So all of this stuff is fine, and they say in moderation, but that's so vague. What's moderation? One a day, one a week? Who knows? So I would love your take on that whole scandal that was going on with doctors, dietitians, and specific influencers.
Mm. I can summarize it very simply. Follow the money.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So we know absolutely, unquestionably, aspartame is a neurotoxin. We've seen cases like coming out of the States, for example. There was a woman, she was drinking something like a liter, and it was 4.5 liters a day of Diet Coke, and she developed MS. Well, she stopped drinking the Coke and her MS symptoms went away because it's a neurotoxin. We know these things cause DNA damage and gene damage and all kinds. So the problem is everything is driven by money. Medical system driven by, I literally made a post just today. Somebody in one of my groups, she had ulcerative colitis and she just decided, I'm done with this, got her colon removed. $218,000 insurance bill. You know how much it costs to heal your gut naturally, reversing ulcerative colitis? On average, $1,500, maybe $4,000. It's not profitable. Right. So it's always in the money. And if we're not looking for root, and there'll be people who listening who have ulcerative colitis and say, bullshit, like, you know, it's autoimmune. My doctor told me. There's always a better way. Diseases are a spectrum. And so we have to look and follow the money. These influencers who are paid to promote aspartame and sucralose and all these horrible sugar alcohols and toxins, we're cherry picking studies or cherry picking information to promote things. It's the same reason why fucking vaccines will get pushed, not just the new ones through COVID. If I can even say the word on this podcast, it's now so politicized and banned everywhere. But there are zero long-term safety studies on these vaccinations. But even there was a doctor, he had something like 1,100 patients he took from his clinic. I forget the guy's name. I'll see if I can find it for you. But he took the data from about 1,100 different patients and found a direct correlation between diseases. The more vaccines they had in their lifetime, the more diseases they had. And so it's because we're messing with nature. Now, there's merit to things, of course, polio and yellow fever and all these things. But the average childhood vaccine schedule in the United States is over 164, 168 vaccinations. The amount of heavy metals, the amount of junk, and there's no safety studies long-term, zero, to actually justify. They just go, well, generally considered safe. And so we follow the money, we see how the entire system has been bastardized and just completely manipulated, and the wording looks really good. And when it comes to food, and I feel like I'm name dropping today, but I've had such great chats with so many experts like Brian Sanders from Food Lies, right? He talks about this stuff all the time. And we had a chat and he talks about the money being in food. Joel Salatin from Food Inc., right? Most famous farmer in the world. They both will tell you that the money is not in real food. The money is in fake food. The profit margins are in fake food. The profit margins are in fake sugar, fake proteins, fake meat. That's where the money comes in, and you can control those supplies. And so when we understand that these companies are paying influencers, that's a problem. The minute you're being paid to say something, there's a bias because the person paying you has a financial benefit. If you get these doctors speaking out, Joseph McCullough recently came out, he's had issues. His accounts are being shadow banned or taken down or threatened to be deplatformed for talking about food, health, and nutrition. There's no money in that. What kind of asinine world do we live in when we're actually believing the people who are behind it? This doctor, famous, world famous, published, he's been on TV for 30 years. Joseph McCullough has been around, and he risks his career to tell you he's going to lose everything to say, hey, eat a natural diet. But the guys who are paying to tell you eat sucralose, eat aspartame, eat plant-based meats, eat lab-grown meat, there's money in that. Who are you going to believe? The person willing to risk everything or the person who has a financial benefit?
Yeah.
Follow the money.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point. Really good point. Those with nothing really to get. Yeah.
It's too bad. It's our whole planet. I'm a pessimist. I mean, the whole planet's going to shit. I'll see if Elon Musk has those tickets to Mars. I'll take one. Try again.
You and my husband would get along so well. He struggles so bad with humanity right now. He's just struggling so hard. Yeah. So
I know that's a whole other rabbit hole. That's a whole different kind of podcast, but I hear you.
It really is. From that point, I want to talk to you about the gut, and especially the holidays coming up. And I mentioned in my podcast before that the holidays are supposed to be, such a wonderful time, as they should be. And they just tend to, for some reason, become extremely stressful for people. And all the emotions come out. It could be depression because maybe they're alone or they've lost a loved one. It could be anxiety because there's just so much more to do during the holidays, or they're off track of their own health and not eating that well. But can we talk a little bit about gut health and how much it deals with the moods that we have, and how we can use the gut to increase the happy moods, and how sometimes when we don't take care of the gut, it's going to increase those moods that we really wish we didn't have.
Oh, I love this question. So just so I got some clarity on that one, Melissa, is it gut health and moods or managing it around busyness, or both?
Gut health, mostly gut health and moods. Like,
Okay.
I think people are starting to get the gist, because people will throw the statistics of where your serotonin is created and all that stuff. But for people to really understand that it's not necessarily your surroundings that are causing you to have these panic attacks. I mean, sure, obviously they have to be measured, but we also have to look at how well we're taking care of ourselves and our guts, because how our moods, the brain and gut connection is so profound that we have to remember that if we're not taking care of these two things, what's happening on the outside world really doesn't matter until you take care of what's internal.
Yeah, I mean, everything, the outsides of our bodies are a direct reflection of the insides of our bodies, and the outsides of our lives are a direct reflection of the insides of our lives. And so when we look at it this way, we can see, okay, well, if I'm sick on the inside, I've got gut issues, bacteria issues, you're going to have anxiety, depression, skin issues, like whatever it is, right? Every disease under the sun can be connected to the gut in some way. On the other hand, when you're in those ways, people who are like energy vampires, they just suck to be around. They've got shit going on inside. Well, if your gut messes with your moods, creates anxiety, depression, irritability, you're going to create an irritable space. You become that energy vampire, and the people that are attracted to you are also energy vampires and matching your frequency. And so you end up surrounding yourself with just the pits, and like everything just goes downhill. So, I mean, it really is this direct connect with who you surround yourself with. But exactly like you said, these external influences, getting stuck in traffic, should not cause you to have a panic attack.
Right.
It's not just you. You're not just fragile. You're not a weak person. It is your body is dealing with something else, causing heightened reactions, heightened elevated responses.
Gosh, I feel like I need you to repeat that. That
Mm.
was, do you remember what you said? Can you repeat?
Not really. I can try though. So I say a lot of things, Melissa. I usually have no idea what comes out of my mouth, but it's your internal body creates heightened reactions to external stressors. Being stuck in a traffic jam, getting in an argument with your spouse, having to take the dog out for a walk, the need to do your laundry, folding the laundry that's piled up in the bed. I've got laundry in my dryer right now. I've left for a day and a half. I just keep turning it on to reheat it. So I'm like, I'll get to it later. But these things shouldn't cause panic attacks.
Right.
If you're having heightened elevated responses, it's because your body is rubbed raw. Your nerves are rubbed raw, and you're dealing with elevated responses due to walking shouldn't cause pain in your ankle, but if you sprained your ankle, it's going to hurt like shit. Right. Walking around the block is going to be difficult. It's the same thing neurologically, chemically in the body. And so, yes, 90% of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. Your dopamine, your serotonin is a bi-directional communication between your gut and your brain. It all matters. But on the other hand, we have to understand that that can be mitigated, that can be fixed. Anxiety can also be attributed not only to gut bacteria and neurotransmitters, but it can also be considered an inflammatory condition. Yeah. Your nerves, when they're hyper excited or hyper elevated or irritated, like a sprained ankle, they're going to have heightened responses. Every stimulus, every stressor, being stuck in traffic, laundry in the dryer, it's all a stimulus for the body. If you are inflamed and you have neuroinflammation, classic example, aspartame, sucralose, other things, gut bacteria, inflammation, you're going to have heightened responses. Your brain's gonna get the signal like, oh shit, like touching a hot stove, like it's bad. And so we have these heightened stress responses, panic attacks, anxiety, depression, for which we get what? Medicated. And then we get on medications, and that's a stressor. Now I'm dependent. You'll be on this the rest of your life, and on the cycle goes. So that's these connections we have to understand. They're inflammatory conditions, they're neurological, they're chemical, they're hormonal. But it all comes back to what your gut and your body's doing as a circulatory whole.
8-hour abs? That sounds like a dream, right? What if I told you you could work on those abs while you dream? It's not too good to be true, I promise. It's something I discovered almost accidentally. that gives you incredible results with minimal effort. The idea behind this is actually in what you're not doing. By giving your digestion time to rest, you allow your body to tap into its fat stores, hence working on that six-pack while you sleep. All you have to do is eat within an 8-hour window and leave the rest up to your body. I wrote the 8-Hour Abs Diet back in 2014 to help people learn about the importance of meal timing. Intermittent fasting has been a huge part in helping me stay in the shape that I am. For me, intermittent fasting means eating in an 8-hour window, and I'll give you my insight on it in this free ebook. With proper meal timing, you will not only look better, but you're going to feel better too. So learn more by visiting melissamadeonline.com/ebooks and get your free copy of the 8-Hour Abs Diet today. Love that. So you and I both constantly in the learning process, and that will never go away. Whenever someone says science is constant, I'm like, nope, it absolutely is.
It's constantly changing.
Changing. And I here lately have seen and have been learning a lot specifically, and I've talked about this. This is why I'm asking you about Acromania. Seems to be just the star child right now when it comes to gut health. Have you done much research on Acromania or anything that you find interesting specifically about that bacteria in the gut, with it being linked to obviously obesity and stuff? And before you get started, I think it's funny because I will share that, I love gut testing. And so I have gut tested a ton of clients, had my husband do one, had my daughter do one. I did one. My husband and my daughter both were below detectable levels for Acromania, and it was really high. And I think the three of us obviously I cook for my husband. We eat very similarly. So it's just crazy. And I think learning specifically how your body is with Acromania, whether it's, in a happy place, below detectable levels or high, isn't something you should guess, obviously, because I just realized now you can get a probiotic of Acromania. And so people are going to hear, hey, this is linked to obesity and people that, go on diets and they don't respond very well. So obviously my Acromania is low. To take this specific probiotic, you need to get tested for it. Don't guess, you don't know. But just going back to the simple question of, have you done any research or paid attention to any of the research on Acromania lately?
Well, interesting you ask. So dealing with inflammatory bowel disease and severely inflamed guts, Acromania is one that I see depleted most often by far. And I mean, like on these stool tests of non-detectable levels. Now, just like you said, there is a caveat. If we focus too much on one individual strain, we can over supplement, we can hyperfixate, and we can blame things for the wrong issue. Ultimately, again, peel back the layers. Why is my Acromania low? Is it an inflammatory condition? Is it a pesticide in the food I'm consuming? Is it a medication? Was it use of antibiotics? Like, why is it low? Now, we can supplement. There's only one company I believe that actually creates those supplements. I'm not affiliated with, but that's Pendulum, and it's great. I think it's actually Halle Berry's at the top of that one. If you happen to run into her, let her know. I've been trying to get her on an interview for a while, but haven't heard back anything. I keep ignoring my emails.
She's busy.
Apparently, hoity-toity. But when we look at Acromania, it is a very important probiotic and a very important bacteria. Like you said, right? If we go, well, I have weight loss resistance, it must be Acromania. No. These probiotics, we have about 18 million different varieties, right? 1,000 to 2,000 different species, 7,000 to 9,000 different strains, multiplied out to about 18 million different bacteria, 100 trillion total, give or take. So if we go, well, it's my Acromania, it's a grain of sand on a beach. It works in part and parcel with many parts of your body, but your body has many mechanisms for weight loss, right? If your body's trying to lose weight, have energy, be healthy, sleep, insomnia, like all these things you're trying to improve, it's not just one bacteria that's doing it. There's 50,000 different mechanisms in your body. It's what are all the things contributing to the broken links leading to these symptoms you're dealing with. And so that's important. That being said, Acromania, it's huge part of the microbiome. It helps produce, I believe it's a butyrate producer, but it is short chain fatty acids. It's great for the preventing leaks in the gut, right? For the gut bacteria, for the microbiome. It's huge in metabolic health. right? Improving how glucose metabolism improves. Even we see it in, like, I believe there's estrogen regulation as part of that. It can play a role in weight management by influencing fat storage and fat balance. And we can see that. We see association in people who have, say, low Acromania levels and high body fat or high BMIs. We see it in cardiovascular health. There's anti-inflammatory properties we can see through some of that. Immune support, brain health, potential cancer reduction, right? Mucin degradation, like all kinds of stuff that we can see in these mucus layers. Like, it is a phenomenal bacteria, but that's one of like 18 million. And so we have 18 million of these little bastards in our body doing 19 different things for us each. So they are very incredible, but I do caution against hyperfixation.
Yeah, 100%. That goes with any kind of, gosh, it could be going back to phytonutrients or antioxidants, or, specific food that is just supposed to be the, I'm just going to use goji berries, for example, goji berries.
Superfood, yeah.
Yes. And it's like, everybody should be consuming these large amounts of goji berries. You know what? Not really.
No.
That's righty. With that being said, I had a question I wanted to ask you. Supplementation. So I know you and I just would love to dig into every single person's gut. I always use the example, Josh, my one little, maybe you can steal it because I'm going to steal a ton of yours. I consider myself, and you're young, you're a baby.
Just a wee lad, yeah.
Yes, you're just a baby. That I used to watch the Magic School Bus on PBS when I was
that show
with Miss Frizzle. And I always tell people that, being able to do a gut test is allowing me to get in my little Magic School Bus for you to swallow me, and I can go through your whole digestive system. Which I think is, I really believe everybody needs to do that. I really, from the bottom of my heart, think it's 99% of people need to know what's going on in their gut. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody wants to do it. And so besides, an ideal diet, are there any kinds of supplementation, nutraceuticals that for the general population that you think would be a good thing to take? I mean, we're talking everything from, a probiotic or prebiotic to MCT oil to anything that just will help the health of the gut on just the general scope of it all, and not really getting into the nitty gritty and the specifics, but just generally speaking, if you're like, okay, world, we obviously need to increase our gut health. We should all be, most of us, I should say, not everybody, should be considering these kinds of nutraceuticals or supplements to put into our diet to help while we heal.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is so hard, right, to blanket say everybody should take this. But if we were to take the vast majority, the 80 to 90%, we are deficient in so many things. Primarily, number one, magnesium. So many of us lack magnesium. There's so many different types. They do different things. You can look them up. A generally safe magnesium just for like gut health. So many people want to take citrate, which can obviously cause more diarrhea, loose stools. I'm a big fan of like a threonate or a bisglycinate. Those ones are great. They're very safe. I recommend to my clients anywhere from 400 to 1200 milligrams a day, split into 2 or 3 doses, because our magnesium is deficient, our soil is deficient. If we look at real farming, like bioregenerative organic farming, they rotate crops, they use cover crops, they let crops die, they don't till the soil. Tilling the soil is actually atrocious for soil health, and we lose a lot of these microbes and minerals, and the soil's dead. It's just dirt that holds a seed. And so we have to use artificial fertilizers and all kinds of junk. And so we lack this biogeochemical cycling between where the fruit falls off the tree, it gets into the grass, it decomposes, the grass grows with these nutrients, the cow eats the grass, we eat the cow. That is an example of bioregenerative or biochemical geocycling, or whatever the official term is. And so we lack a lot of that because we're eating from these mega farms, from monocrops, tilled soil. And so our food's deficient, primarily in a lot of things, but magnesium is a big one. Yeah. Second to that, I recommend B vitamins. Now, a very safe way to go would be to look for a methylated B complex. Now, methylation, you can see on the back, it'll say methylcobalamin. It'll say methylfolate. And these are pre-methylated. 44% of the population has this MTHFR SNP, where they can't properly methylate, or we'll say use the raw materials from these vitamins. So getting a nice multi with methylated vitamins is a great way to go. And that's just going to help with nerves, general gut health, tissue health, and all of that. But a big one is omega-3s. We're so deficient in omega-3s. And so if I had to give anybody a basic stack just for general health, it'd be a multivitamin, like a vitamin and mineral complex is important when deficient in minerals, a B vitamin and omega-3s. Outside of that, of course, like magnesium, I would also recommend for people dealing with gut issues, what's a very safe and very effective would be like a butyrate supplement.
Mhm.
Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid and it's produced by our gut bacteria. But a lot of us have gut bacteria issues. Now, if you're not going to test, you're not going to put the money, you're not going to figure it out. Ultimately, I'd rather test and repair the gut so you can produce your own, right? It's like growing your own food, saves you money having to go to the grocery store. And so if we can do that through these supplements, we can fix it, great. But if not, if you're like, you know what, just want to try it out, get a butyrate supplement. There's a couple of them you can pick up. I know lots of companies make them. That's Bruce. My wife just got home. That's my little wiener dog. He's got a big lion bark. So if we're looking at
Barely heard it.
yeah, barely, he roars like a lion in the zoo, all 10 pounds of him. So if we're looking at supplements like butyrate, there are some companies who make a supplement called tributarin, and that's like a form of butyrate or short chain fatty acid that's the most readily available, but you can buy them in like a sodium butyrate or a calcium magnesium butyrate. And studies have shown anywhere from like 4 to 6, it's a lot, but like 4 to 6 grams a day, even without testing, can have huge corrective properties on your gut bacteria and your gut health overall. So those are very safe, very healthy supplements to take that I do recommend to a lot of my clients. Of course, much like you, I do tests. I want to see GI mapping. Even though there's 18 million varieties of bacteria and I can see 50 to 100, I still want to see because they make huge impacts. Doctors tell me all the time, well, it's a useless test, it doesn't work. Well, it's a cornerstone of what we're doing to reverse ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease in people who would otherwise be on medications the rest of their lives. And it can be very easy sometimes. So those are my core supplements I would recommend for general health, much of what I use in my own clients, but very safe, very effective.
Okay. And so that takes me to looking at the time, so I'm not keeping you for hours on end.
Right. We could chat as long as it's fine. If your listeners aren't bored, I'm not.
All the questions. So I'm thinking of, supplementation and the soils, and how our soils are depleted of these minerals that we really need, all the minerals that we need, which puts me to zinc, which puts me to, zinc is essential for hydrochloric acid. And I find in my clients, I'm not sure if you do as well, which is my question. I find that obviously most of the time, the hydrochloric acid in my clients is very insufficient. And so we have to work on or encourage that, getting that more acidic so that they digest their food, especially their proteins better. Do you find that as well, that because of the stress and the standard American diet, that the hydrochloric acid in your clients is also insufficient, causing a lot of distress in the digestive tract?
Almost always, unquestionably. When we look at stomach acid, we'll say HCl for terminology here, the hydrochloric acid, the stomach acid. If we look at stressors, we have so many of them in our daily lives. If we go right back to, caveman days, for example, right? Short bursts of stressors. Got to go and collect the berries, figure it out, hope a tribe doesn't kill you, run from the cheetah, the tiger, whatever, and then come back. Side note, I had a weird dream that I had a pet cheetah last night. Anyway, I don't know why that was relevant. I know, it was super cute. It did not eat me. But we had these short burst stressors, right? So these little things would come in and boom, we're back to normal and everything's fine. In our daily lives, chronic stress about money, chronic stress about traffic, chronic stress about relationships, chronic stressors all the time from every angle, boss and family and friends and social and time and, new diseases in the news every other day. Like there's always things causing chronic stressors. These deplete our stomach acid. They deplete it. If we are not in rest and digest, we're not resting or digesting, which is part of stomach acid, digestive enzymes, right? That peristalsis moving food through. And we're always in this fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, you cannot rest, you cannot digest. We have low stomach acid as a byproduct. So absolutely recommend for many people. Now, with low stomach acid, I do recommend a caution. We can absolutely supplement HCl pills. But in a lot of cases that I see, probably 30 to 50% of the cases of IBD I see, there's low stomach acid, there's also H. pylori. Now, H. pylori, right, can wear down, can cause these issues in the stomach lining. Then we add stomach acid back in, now we have ulceration. And so for some people, a safe bet, try apple cider vinegar. It's not a replacement, but it can add enough acid in. It's not going to cause enough damage if there is ulcers, but it can also actually help combat the H. pylori. And so over time, we can then look to maybe add HCl if that feels good and feels safe. But like you said, we need zinc. And the problem is, guess what? You have low HCl. You're not digesting food. You're going to be nutrient deficient. You're not going to be extracting iron efficiently out of your body. You're going to be anemic. You're going to have inflammation. Stomach acid helps regulate gut bacteria coming in and out. And so you're going to have bacterial overgrowth or other issues eventually. We know antacids, sidebar, are directly connected to osteoporosis, gut issues, gut disease, the works. When you have low acid, what do you get? Acid reflux. When you get acid reflux, what do? An antacid, which does what? Pushes your stomach acid down further. I know, facepalm, right? Pushes your stomach acid down further. And so you're just making the issue worse. It's asinine. My wife gets acid reflux when she's stressed. What do? Shot of apple cider vinegar. Goes away every single time. And so we have these issues with gut, with inflammation, with stomach acid because of chronic stress, which leads to almost every issue under the sun. If you have low stomach acid, eventually you will have gut issues, and gut issues are connected to every single disease. Alessio Fasano actually has a paper called All Diseases Start in the Leaky Gut. And he's actually going to be, I mean, there's talk he might be up for a Nobel Prize. He discovered zonular in the leaky gut. He's that guy.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah, fascinating stuff. But all diseases, I mean, MS, Alzheimer's, diabetes, ADHD, depression, anxiety, rosacea, acne, osteoporosis, you name it, they all start back in the gut. In fact, even autism is being looked at as being, yes, neurological, but they're also considering it a gut issue, a bacterial issue, and even possibly an autoimmune condition, all coming back to the gut.
Yeah, fantastic. Have you heard of Josh Dech?
I've not. Enlighten me.
Yeah, he's fabulous. I just finished a course of his, and he's very big into supplements and food, therapeutic doses. You know,
I also like food. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just really appreciate his. He's Canadian. Appreciate his take and his organization on foods and supplements at therapeutic doses. I think so many people, because of our RDA, think that, just taking this bare minimum of vitamin C, especially if we don't get a lot of vitamin C foods in our diet, this little tiny dose of vitamin C is going to be enough to help you on a therapeutic level. And so he just kind of breaks it apart and tells you, and it's just mind blowing how high you can go. Some of these, of course, not like iron. You've got to be very specific, but others, putting these vitamins and these minerals and even foods at these higher doses are so therapeutic for the bodies. Like even talking about the gut lining and how powerful cabbage is. And what I always tell my audience is, you hear from somebody how cabbage, has glutamate in it, and it's good for the gut lining. And so every once in a blue moon, you're at a salad bar and you grab a little bit of cabbage on there and you think you're doing something good for your gut. It's got to be a quarter to a half of a cabbage a day. And I don't know very many people that want to eat or juice a quarter or half a cabbage a day. And instead you can use a nutraceutical or a supplement that is more at therapeutic doses to help heal the gut lining. Total sidebar, but I really enjoyed his course. I thought it was great.
Well, I don't think it's a sidebar at all, actually. I think it's directly connected, right? I mean, we talked about diets earlier in carnivore. Many of them tend to be vitamin C deficient. It may not be clinical scurvy, but it can be deficient. But we look at our food and our diets, we're so restrictive. There are like 100 different varieties of apples. We see like 4 in our grocery stores.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many different things out there. But if we go back to the biogeochemical cycling of fruit dying into grass, cows eat grass, we eat cow, there's excess nutrients in there. But in the farming practices we have now, our soil is nutrient deficient, which means that our food is nutrient deficient. One could argue that, like, we know bioregenerative organic farms have a higher nutrient quality than farm foods and monocrop foods. And so we're nutrient deficient. And so all these vitamins and supplements, yeah, we can supplement till the cows come home. But the problem is, if we're constantly supplementing, we're still not getting to the root. The root is our food. Our food is the problem. Our food makes us sick, not only because it's inflammatory, but because it lacks what we need to be healthy, because our food quality is so poor. And so the farming matters, the food matters, the supplements matter. And that's the question is, well, how can we? Well, many of us need a supplement, but you're right. The supplements have enough to do something, but not enough to really do anything, right? 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, 2,000 milligrams. Yeah. Many people, if they can tolerate it, over 8 grams, I get diarrhea. One of my naturopaths, he could have 30 grams a day. He actually did that. Warts started falling off. He felt better. But imagine how much vitamin C you'd be getting from a bioregenerative organic, 20, 50 years or thousands of years of healthy soil from a tomato or from strawberries or from oranges in this kind of soil versus one you buy at the grocery store that was grown and stuck in a warehouse for 6 months before it got here.
Just the taste alone.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
It's so vastly different. Like you've eaten, I'm sure, like regenerative, organic, like bio organic. Can't even say getting my words all mixed up. These like a raspberry from like a bioregenerative organic farm versus one you get from like Driscoll's from the grocery store.
Yeah.
They taste terrible. They taste like soap. They're bland. These little field strawberries, these berries, they're so dense and so sweet and so flavorful. But that's the difference in nutrients. I buy my meat, for example, from a local ranch, right? TK Ranch here in Alberta. Shout out to these guys, love them. I buy my meat there. You go to the grocery store, what color is steak? Right? It's like pink, like a bright pink. Well, they dip it in blood. They use dyes in the food, all kinds of stuff, especially salmon. It's this bright pink. I go to these cows are raised in a field where the grass isn't tilled. They're moved around. They have like proper farm life. They eat nothing but grass and what grows in the earth. That meat is purple. It's dark brown purple. And the difference in quality, in taste, and nutrients is so vast. I was actually in the UK a couple of weeks back. I was in Ireland. I bought some steaks from the grocery store. I spit it out. I'm like, what? Like, because I've been eating this meat for so long. And it's really not that much more expensive than grocery store beef. It's just where you buy it from. And so the quality is so much different. I cook my steak here and it's brown. I cook that and it's gray. And I ate it and it tasted like paper. It was garbage. I'm like, I can't eat this.
Wow.
And that's the difference in our food. And when we look at where our food comes from, and this is why we're all deficient in everything. This is why we're all sick. And so I wish we didn't have to supplement so much, but we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. So I'm asking for a friend. I'm your client right now. I'm asking.
I love it. Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
I got you.
To talk to me about, because this is hereditary for my grandmother, my mom, myself, and my daughter all have very slow motility. And I will tell you that I eat very, very well.
Of course.
I exercise. I have very little stress in my life. I sleep like a champ. My hydration is stellar.
I envy you. Your life is so chill.
It really is. But my biggest, I'm also in perimenopause, but so far it's like,
it's because you're healthy. Yeah, whatever.
But the slow motility, causes, my whole family, because it's not a daily visit to the bathroom for us. So, if I was your client and I was walking in, and I know we're talking root cause here, I'm telling you, Josh, I'm puzzled. And we've even used Motility Pro and Bowel Mover and all of these great nutraceuticals, and it's just, and added extra fiber. Gosh, what else? Tried all the things. Oh, wait, before you answer that, because my audience is going to ask, they will ask this, how much apple cider vinegar? So like if they were going to have it, I know that was random, but I wanted to ask you that, and it popped back into my mind for my audience that just listens to this and they're like, okay, I would like to try the apple cider vinegar. I've never done that before. What are you talking, like a tablespoon between each meal, or just a nice big chug first thing in the morning? What would be your recommendation for people that want to incorporate some apple cider vinegar into their diet?
Start slow. Don't shoot it straight. It'll burn your esophagus. It sucks. I did that by accident first time I learned. I was like 15 years ago. I'm like, sure, ow. But I do recommend you start with like a teaspoon, right? Mix it with like a third cup of water and just drink it down. See how it feels, right? That's something. Low stomach acid, obviously basics, right? Like watch your water intake 30 minutes before and after meals and all that. Sit, breathe, like take time. But apple cider vinegar, start slow, right? And once you have either acidic bowel movements or some acid reflux or burning, you have too much, back it off and probably go with that. I do the same thing for HCl pills. I'm like, start with one, every meal, add another. I've taken up to 15, 16 in a sitting because my stomach acid was so low. But once I have acidic bowel movements or I have that bloat, acid reflux, discomfort, I'm like, okay, I back it off by one and that's perfect. That's just enough without going over.
I love that. I do that too. Okay. So back to the constipation, fix me.
Yes. All right. So slow motility. We have about 23,000 different genes in the human genome, right? So it's a very comprehensive situation we got going on what influences what. But there are different genes that can influence it. Now, if it's familial, there's probably a genetic influence. But as you know, genes load the gun, lifestyle, other factors pull the trigger. And so what loaded the gun? If it's genes, okay, we got to work uphill against that. Now, genes, we can't really turn them on and off. Doesn't work
Yeah.
that way, right? Well, genes are off and I did this thing and it turned them on. It's a dimmer switch, right? You can turn them up or turn them down with various influential factors, but you can't turn them on or off. And so, and that's straight from Ben Lynch. He wrote the book Dirty Genes. He's a brilliant geneticist, or whatever the term is there, but brilliant guy. And so we can turn them up, turn them down. The question is, what influences those? So if you have certain genes influencing this, like, I mean, we can name a bunch of numbers, you know, SNC5A, ACTG2, and, you know, KIT genes. Who cares? The idea is you got shit going on. So the question is, you've tried bowel movers, you've tried motility things, you've tried all kinds. Have you tried, like, you're talking digestive bitters, you've done all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're lacking motility, what wouldn't hurt is go, I mean, it can be expensive, but go and get a full nutrient panel done. If you haven't done one, check to see, are you deficient in certain vitamins or minerals? And now again, we have to keep in mind, this is a great point to tie back to the beginning. We talked about testing. Your doctor will test your thyroid or test your vitamins, your blood. Well, it's normal. Or even if your white blood cells are coming under 3, well, it's really low, we should watch that. You're testing a sick population whose white blood cells are elevated, or sick population whose thyroid is already low, or whose vitamins and minerals are deficient as hell. Like you talked about, we can take 30 grams of vitamin C in a single sitting and be okay if it doesn't give you diarrhea, because we're so deficient. Our bank accounts are in the red. We're not in a surplus. So we take enough to do something, but not enough to do anything. And so you could have deficiencies that, even though on paper look okay, you might still be deficient in, because you're testing against a sick population.
Yeah.
And so it could be that simple. So what I recommend in those cases is, of course, not knowing what you've done to somebody who might be deficient right now. Hyperdose vitamins and minerals for a week. Try 10 times, 20 times the bottle dose. I mean, obviously, I'm not telling you this because I'll get sued. Talk to your doctor. They'll probably tell you no, but I have to say the caveat. But a lot of these things can be very safe for short bursts. If I'm sick, I take 30 to 50,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. Your doctor will tell you, no, throttle that, you can get sick. It's a week, dude, I'll be fine. Right? We've seen super doses of vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, hundreds of thousands of IUs via IV for sickness and disease, and it fixes you. And so it can just be something like that. But outside of that, unfortunately, there's still ongoing research and science onto exactly why we're deficient. But if we're constantly comparing ourselves to a deficient generation, what, 100 years of agricultural monocropping and mega farming, you've got decades and decades of deficient soil. Odds are you're probably just missing something you don't know you're missing, because the tests you're testing aren't accurate, because they're based on a skewed probability, based on a sick population. And that's probably the best I can give you, unfortunately, without knowing more.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's probably the one thing, is a real comprehensive panel that, you know, I've checked for all the typicals, but you're absolutely right. So thank you for that.
Go through Vibrant America, Vibrant Wellness Lab in California. Go through, there's labs in Germany who will do this. All over the world they'll do it. But yeah, get a complete panel. Check all your fatty acids, check all your omegas, check all your vitamins, all your minerals, in as much detail as money can allow, and see if there's some deficiencies. And then from there, honestly, even the things that are medium, it would be very safe to supplement all of those until they're reading high, because you're higher than a sick population of average. So it's only going to be good for you. Yeah,
right. I love that. And check. It's going to be my Christmas present to myself. Last question I have for you. Sure. And sometimes, you know, when I ask questions, I'm really just looking for validation. So I'm not setting this question up at all.
I love an echo chamber.
So I do see, and it usually comes from very, very well-meaning people who are trying to give people freedom, because they probably see the chaos that's out there when it comes to giving people advice on being healthy. And I see it a lot of people that will mention they'll even say, you know, myths, you know, health myths or something like that. And one of them is, and how they quote it, and they're not wrong, is eating late won't make you gain weight. Eating late won't make you fat. What are your thoughts on eating late?
Your metabolism does slow down. We'll say metabolism. I want to be careful to define metabolism. We often see as how quickly I gain or lose weight. Metabolism is defined by any chemical process in a living organism used to maintain life. So that's every cell, every hair growth, gaining and losing weight, how well you sleep, your digestion. That's all part of metabolism. And so to say your metabolism slows down at night. It does. Your body temperature drops a few degrees, your heart rate slows down, every metabolic process slows down. And that's when your body does its best detoxing, its best cleaning, its best cleansing. Now, we do our best digestion in rest and digest, but we don't do a good job of digesting while we sleep and digest. Your body does this process called methylation, which I'm sure you've talked about to your audience before. We do the most methylating asleep. We do the most detoxing when we're asleep. And if your body, it takes so much blood to have to digest food. It takes an immense amount. This is why people eat a lot of carbs. You'll get tired. It takes so much blood and oxygen to digest carbs and metabolize it. We fall asleep at Thanksgiving. It's not tryptophan and turkey. It's the 40 pounds of potatoes you ate with lunch. And so this is our problem. And so I recommend most people don't eat within some people upwards of 4 hours of going to bed. I do 2 to 3. I am guilty 100% of late night snacking, and I sleep like garbage. I wake up hungry. I wake up bloated. I wake up with a little bit of what feels like GERD, and I don't have GERD, but I'm not digesting very well because I'm asleep. My metabolism, that metabolic process, digestion has slowed. So you can get hyperfermentation. You can get a lack of digestion, lack of absorption. It can throw your circadian rhythm. Your sleep-wake schedule is tied to your gut. This is why if you travel like less than a week or so, say I'm traveling 4 hours ahead, my normal eating window is like 8 a.m. to say, 9 p.m. Over there, I'm going to eat between 12 and maybe 1 because that's my eating window, because I don't want to be jet lagged when I come back. Your circadian rhythm is tied to your gut. And if you eat, it does disrupt sleep. Absolutely. If you disrupt sleep, you increase stress. You increase stress, you disrupt your gut. And now you have a double whammy.
Yeah. Thank you. I agree.
Yeah. I'm glad we're on the same. I'm happy to create friction, but I'm glad we agree on some stuff.
So is there anything else, Josh, that you would like to add? Anything that we haven't covered that you think is important for the audience to know, or just anything maybe that you even just specialize in that we haven't talked about, or anything else?
I think we've hit so many different things, and I love these conversations that talk about everything and yet one thing, the one thing being your gut. We downplay our gut. We downplay the role of it in our body. Every disease starts in the gut, in the leaky gut. Now, leaky gut's a good thing, right? Leaky gut is actually a natural process. Your body tries to create leaks to bring in water to flush junk out that shouldn't be there. But we have chronic inflammation, which leads to sustained leaky gut, which leads to sustained inflammation in the body. You have one cell between your small intestine and your bloodstream and lymphatics. It gets in the same place. You have 2 cells from your colon, your large intestine, to your blood. And so these things are passing through and they shouldn't be, because these gaps are too big, because we're inflamed. These travel around the body. You get arthritis because there's inflammation traveling around the body. Inflammation isn't a thing. It's things that cause inflammation. We get the gist. So we really need to understand that your gut is everything. If you are not gaining weight, it could be your gut. If you're not losing weight, it could be your gut. You're not sleeping very well, you have insomnia, guess what? Could be your gut, right? If you have skin issues, you have arthritis, you have mood issues, you have lack of focus, concentration, lack of motivation and drive, lack of sex drive, all these things can tie back directly to your gut. Somebody gave me shit recently. I was talking about hormones in the gut. I'm like, okay, estrogen's made in the gut. And I'm like, idiot, it's balanced by your gut. Like, you don't have ovaries in your gut. But this is the thing. This can be kind of a shocking bit of information. But we have to receive it openly. If we just go, oh, I haven't heard about that, that doesn't make sense, it's stupid. You are the reason why this information isn't getting to the masses, because we're stopping it. There was a time when hand washing was poo-pooed, right? It wasn't until 1856 or something. Dr. I think it was Ignaz Semmelweis, something like that, had said, we need to wash our hands. He discovered, after viewing 2 different wards, actually did a podcast episode about this. He was viewing 2 different hospital wards, one with midwives and priests and the other with nurses and doctors. And he found there was a death rate 5 times higher in the wards of mothers and sometimes babies in the ward that had doctors and nurses, not the one with midwives and priests. He thought, well, maybe it's the prayers, maybe it's the smoke. What they found out, it was the ones with midwives and the ones with doctors and nurses also happened to be doing autopsies with the same tools they were doing deliveries and helping women with. Now, this was before hand washing was a thing. And so they were actually cross-contaminating corpses with women giving birth. They had a 5 times higher mortality rate. And he said, well, we should wash our hands and wash our tools. And you'd think this would-be hero would have accolades and prizes, and he'd be marched down the street with a parade. But the doctors did not want to be blamed for having given these women what they call childbed fever, this sickness. And so he lost his job, he got fired, and ended up just dying alone years later because he was ostracized. And so it's the lack of understanding and the lack of acceptance of what could be new things, that even though it maybe doesn't make sense now, back then death was like spirits and magic. Now we have science. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's bad. And if we're not going to approach these things with an open mind, we can be slowing down the evolution of health, medicine, and wellness for decades and generations without realizing it. And so my idea is be open. Seek first to understand. If we don't get it, ask questions rather than try to shut it down. And that's how we can make the world a much better, healthier place.
That's beautiful. And I really agree with that. I think we all get into that little time where we feel that, what we know or what we do is the end all be all, or it is the best for everybody. I even went through that. I mean, there for a while, I was very, very adamant about everybody should, eat the way that I eat because it works so well for me. It's got to work well for everybody else. And I have so changed my mind about that. And I really appreciate the one-on-one and being able to work with somebody one-on-one and figuring out what works best for them as opposed to just blanketing it out. And I think if we all had that mindset of, just because it works well for you doesn't mean that it's going to work well for everybody. And if somebody else is doing something completely different with you, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. And that doesn't mean that there isn't science behind it or there isn't reasoning behind it. And you can, be the meanie on social media that most people are, and voice your opinion without education to back it. So I think that's very profound, and especially politics, religion, nutrition. I mean, we have huge divisions as well. And if we just really go back to the simplicity of it all, which I really appreciate everything that you said, because I think you're just really reminding people that there's help out there. It doesn't have to be that hard. And you absolutely can do it. Just sign up for a powerlifting.
That's it. Just sign a paper and hope for the best. Trust fall.
Yeah, just trust your nutritionist and sign this paper. I freaking love that.
If I can make one more note for you on that, Melissa. There's a lot of great professionals out there who I've been following for decades, and I don't want to name names to poo-poo people because they have a lot of great stuff. So on that note, I won't name names, but there is someone I've been following for about 15 maybe plus years when I was into bodybuilding and nutrition. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant doctor, but everything that doesn't have a hard study to back it up, you go, oh, this is stupid, and he just tears people apart on social media. And I have a problem with that because like recently there was a video we had done on like food dye and red dyes and all these things they affect. He says, well, they're safe because there's no studies proving it. I'm like, he says correlation doesn't equal causation. And I agree. But when you have 300 studies correlating, right? Because there's so many factors that go into the brain and moods. You have 300, 400, 500 studies making correlations. When do we stop and go, okay, maybe this is worth considering? Just because it's not hard on paper. Like, who pays for these studies? Pharmaceutical companies, because at the back of it, they can give you a drug to medicate, to do whatever. Classic example, and I know we're way over time here. I'm great. I got a few more minutes here. A client of mine's a doctor down in Utah, and she went to a conference on liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease toward liver transplants. 400 doctors in the room. They're doing a talk saying that high fructose corn syrup will be the leading cause of a need for liver transplants by 2025. And they say it's okay. We now have this drug for that. And everybody, okay, let's write this down. And she's looking around, puts her hand up. She's like, are we not going to talk about food and nutrition? Well, it's not what this conference is about. It's about this drug. And so we're not getting to roots. We have these correlations. We have the data. And even then we're ignoring it because on the back end, it comes down to money. Everything's about money. And if we're looking at these studies going, well, it's correlation data, we don't know for sure it's a problem. Why don't we cut it out and just try rather than saying, no, don't bother, don't worry about it? That to me is ridiculous. And that perpetuates a lot of sickness and disease unnecessarily in the industry, even from some of the best and the best, most educated, well-meaning people. And this makes it very difficult for your average consumer to understand what they're looking at, which is why you really you have to advocate for yourself, do your own research, see what vibes with you, and pick one path at a time. You can't do 10.
Right. And I know who you're talking about. What happened to common sense? I mean, when are these, these food dyes and these products, these chemicals that are put in our food, when do you just not put common sense into play and just really try to go back to eating a more healthy life. I love the reel and the TikTok that's going around lately that says, you know, when somebody tries to eat healthy, it's now considered restrictive, or it's considered a diet. It's considered, you know, whatever they call it. You know, when did that become a bad thing? That you just, you're hyper focused on putting really good nutrition into your body, that's a bad thing. And I just think we have to go back to common sense. I mean, just really think about it. What you're putting in your body, is it nourishing it or is it not? You know, is it made in a lab, or is it, you know, grown on the farm or at the ranch? I just
Well, we do have a raccoon culture. We're all trash pandas. You know, like whatever it is, we don't care what kind of garbage, we'll put it in our mouths because it tastes good. And that's the problem. Culturally speaking, food is fun, food is social, food is enjoyment, food is experience. And we really start to miss these experiences. And I know I'm off on a tangent now. There was a woman I was talking to years back. She did a blog post about this. She moved to Ecuador with her kids, young kids. And she wanted them to experience earth and nature and life and poverty and understand what it means to work and farming and get your hands in the soil. And all of her friends were like, you're ruining their childhood. They're never going to experience Disneyland. And that's the American dream. And she's like, where are your priorities? And so our priorities aren't in the natural. It's not in the real. It's in this fake, artificial everything, whether it's food, experiences, whatever. And that's a cultural problem. We've disassociated from our food. And that's why we're all so bloody sick. And now, like you said, eating healthy is now called a diet. I would like to flip the script and say, you know, eating junk food is a bad diet. Eating healthy is just eating healthy. Right? I'm sure I can come up with something more clever to put in a meme one day. But the idea being, it is just, it's habit, it's pattern, it's culture, and that needs to change. We are all going to be very, very sick one day.
Yeah, no, I agree, well, wholeheartedly. And so we have a mission, Josh.
We're on it.
We have a mission. As I just really enjoy talking with you, and thank you for giving me this time and blessing my audience with not only your knowledge, but there are people that come onto my podcast that are true teachers, and you're definitely a true teacher to their life experiences, the way that you sum things up. You've got a gift, and I really appreciate you being on here and sharing that with us. Can you please share where people can find you on social media, websites, all that good stuff to be able to work with you?
Sure. Number one place, if you guys want to listen, you can always find me, of course. If you need some help, you can reach out. It's just joshdech.health. But I always encourage, right now, I'm not saying no to anybody. Anybody who wants to talk, have a conversation. You got a podcast and you got 20 listeners a month, I'll come and talk to you. Because right now we want to get this message out to as many people as we can. So if you want to learn more about this, we have some amazing doctors and guests. You can always check out Reversible. That's reverse able, little play on words. My podcast is called Reversible, the Ultimate Gut Health Podcast. And we have some of the best in the world. And it's all gut health. We're talking to people on food and disease, where it comes from, the microbiome and the research behind it, specific bacteria. Melissa, you were on there talking about the role of gut in fitness. We have some of the best, like Dr. William Lee, Dr. Leo Galland. We had Lisa Bilyeu talking about, there's so much. And we have just some of the best names in the industry, the functional medicine world, just talking about gut disease. And that's my primary concern right now, is just to share this message with as many people as we can. And so if you're listening to this episode and you're finishing this up and you think that this episode and this podcast, Melissa's podcast, any of these things you feel are going to help change your life or the life of someone around you, just click the share button, put it on your social media, send it to a friend, pay it forward. We take our time as professionals. I know you do, Melissa, I do myself, to create this content. I don't think people understand how much is involved in being a content creator. I spend 80 plus hours a week. My wife has taken over social and podcast managing. It's a 25, 30 hour a week job just creating this content. And we're not getting paid. We do it because we love it, because we don't have the money motivation. Yeah, I mean, we can get paid eventually one day, but we just want to push this message to as many people as we can, to bless and help as many people as we can. And we are literally dedicating our lives and our time to it. So share this episode, share this message. You can find me at Reversible, the Ultimate Gut Health Podcast, and you can listen in there as well to learn more about gut health and what you can do to keep yourself and your family and your lives happy and healthy.
Yeah, I'm just grinning ear to ear. By the way, for those of you that just have not once looked at anything and just listened, it's DECH, not DEC.
That's right.
Josh Dech. how blessed I am in this profession to come across such good people like you. Animal lover, great husband, advocate. So thank you so much. And I, of course, anytime that you've just got something to share, just reach out to me, and I'd love to have you back on the podcast because I just really enjoy our conversations.
I love that. Thank you. Have me back anytime. I know maybe having 2 gut health episodes back to back can be a bit redundant, but I'm happy to dive into anything, anytime. If you're looking for content, you're looking for an episode, reach out. I would love to. These are my favorite things to do. I love these conversations and I love sharing this. So I'll come back anytime you ask.
Perfect. Excellent. You guys heard it. So as always, I hope you guys wake up feeling prepared and that you go to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.